Have you ever wondered why men and women look, feel, and even function differently on a biological level? It's a fascinating question that goes far beyond just appearance. The answer lies deep within our genetics, hormones, and the long story of human evolution. Today we're diving into the science behind the physiological differences between the sexes, exploring how our bodies are uniquely designed. These aren't value judgments, but simply the incredible diversity of our biology. Let's start with a big one: muscle and strength. On average, men have a higher proportion of muscle mass, particularly in the upper body. This difference kicks in during puberty, thanks to a surge in the hormone testosterone. Testosterone is a powerful anabolic hormone, meaning it helps build tissue, especially muscle. It signals the body to synthesize more protein, leading to larger and stronger muscle fibers. While women can, of course, build incredible strength, their lower baseline levels of testosterone mean that, on average, their muscle mass is distributed differently. Speaking of distribution, let's talk about body fat. Where our bodies store energy is another key difference. Women tend to store more fat around the hips, thighs, and buttocks. This is known as a gynoid fat distribution pattern. Biologically, this is incredibly useful, providing a ready energy reserve for pregnancy and breastfeeding. Men, on the other hand, typically store fat around the abdomen, in what's called an android or apple-shaped pattern. These storage patterns are largely directed by our primary sex hormones. And that brings us to the hormonal system itself, the body's chemical messaging network. While both men and women have the same hormones, the levels are vastly different. In men, testosterone is the dominant sex hormone. It drives the development of male characteristics, influences muscle mass, bone density, and even red blood cell production. In women, estrogen and progesterone take the lead. Estrogen is crucial for the reproductive cycle, but it also impacts bone health, cholesterol levels, and skin elasticity. Progesterone works alongside estrogen, primarily preparing the body for potential pregnancy each month. These hormones are the master conductors of our physiological orchestra. These hormonal differences directly influence our metabolism, or how our bodies convert food into energy. Because men generally have more muscle mass, which is metabolically active tissue, they often have a higher basal metabolic rate, or BMR. This means their bodies burn more calories at rest compared to women of the same weight. Consequently, the average daily energy requirement for men is typically higher. It's not about one being faster or slower, but simply a reflection of different body compositions and their energy demands. Now let's look at the very frame of our bodies, the skeletal system. On average, men tend to be taller and have denser, larger bones. Again, testosterone plays a role here by promoting bone growth during puberty. A really significant difference, however, is in the pelvis. The female pelvis is generally wider and more circular than the male pelvis, an elegant evolutionary adaptation to allow for childbirth. This structural difference also affects posture and how the legs align, which can influence movement patterns. Moving to our internal engines, the cardiovascular and respiratory systems also show subtle but important variations. Men typically have larger hearts and lungs relative to their body size. This allows for a greater stroke volume, the amount of blood pumped with each beat, and a higher lung capacity. Their blood also contains, on average, more hemoglobin and red blood cells, which are responsible for carrying oxygen. This means their bodies can transport oxygen to the muscles slightly more efficiently, which can be an advantage in certain endurance activities. What about our skin and hair? You've probably noticed that men's skin is, on average, about 25% thicker than women's. It also has a tougher texture and more collagen density. Men also tend to have more active sebaceous glands, which produce oil, making their skin oilier and more prone to acne. When it comes to body hair, the difference is obvious. The same hormones that deepen the voice and build muscle also stimulate the growth of thicker, darker hair on the face, chest, and limbs in men. And speaking of voices, why do men typically have deeper voices? It all comes down to the larynx or voice box. During puberty, testosterone causes the male larynx to grow larger and the vocal cords to become longer and thicker. Just like the thick strings on a guitar produce a lower note, these longer, thicker vocal cords vibrate more slowly, resulting in a deeper pitch. The female larynx undergoes less change, so the vocal cords remain shorter and thinner, producing a higher-pitched voice. Now let's touch upon a very complex topic, the brain. While we must be very careful to avoid stereotypes, science has shown some subtle structural and hormonal influences. For instance, hormones like estrogen and testosterone can affect neurotransmitter systems, which might influence mood and cognitive function. Research has also identified slight average differences in the size of certain brain regions, though the significance of these findings is still a major area of study. What's most important to remember is that individual variation is enormous, and our experiences in learning shape our brains far more than these subtle biological predispositions. A defining feature of female physiology is the hormonal cycle. Roughly every 28 days, a woman's body goes through a cycle orchestrated by fluctuating levels of estrogen and progesterone. This cycle prepares the body for a potential pregnancy and culminates in menstruation if pregnancy does not occur. These hormonal shifts have wide-ranging effects, influencing everything from energy levels and mood to body temperature and fluid retention. It's a dynamic monthly process that has a profound impact on a woman's overall physiology. These differences also play out in physical performance and recovery. The interplay of hormones, muscle mass, and metabolism affects how our bodies respond to exercise. For example, men's higher testosterone levels can aid in faster muscle protein synthesis, potentially leading to quicker recovery after strength training. Women, on the other hand, often show remarkable endurance, partly because their bodies are more efficient at using fat for fuel during prolonged exercise. Understanding these nuances is key for anyone looking to optimize their training. Ever argued over the thermostat? There might be a biological reason for that. There are differences in thermoregulation or how our bodies manage heat. Women tend to feel colder more easily. This is partly because they generally have a lower metabolic rate, and their bodies are wired to conserve heat around their core organs, sometimes at the expense of their hands and feet. Men, with their higher muscle mass, generate more heat at rest. They also tend to start sweating sooner and sweat more profusely than women as a way to cool down efficiently. Of course, the most fundamental differences are genetic and reproductive. A person's biological sex is determined by their sex chromosomes, typically XX for females and XY for males. The Y chromosome contains the SRY gene, which kickstarts the development of male reproductive organs. This leads to the obvious anatomical differences in primary and secondary sex organs, all designed for their respective roles in reproduction. Finally, these differences continue to evolve as we age. For women, menopause marks a significant hormonal shift, with a sharp decline in estrogen production. This can lead to changes like decreased bone density, shifts in fat distribution, and changes to the skin. Men experience a more gradual decline in testosterone, a process sometimes called andropause. This can contribute to a slow decrease in muscle mass, energy, and bone density over many decades. In conclusion, the physiological differences between men and women are a testament to the beautiful complexity of human biology. From our bones and muscles to our hormones and metabolism, our bodies are shaped by a combination of genetics and evolution for different yet complementary functions. These are not hierarchies of better or worse, they are simply different biological blueprints. Understanding them allows us to better appreciate the incredible diversity of the human form and the unique ways each of our bodies works. Thank you so much for joining me on this scientific journey today. If you found this fascinating, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of science. We'll see you in the next one.